Take my meal. I need tokens for Mother's cure," cried the alien child. The marketplace on the orbital station shimmered under a lattice of amber lights, each flickering tube fighting to stay alive against the hum of 1,000 machines. Air recyclers breathed unevenly, mixing the scent of ionized metal with fried synth-protein and burnt spices. Humans and non-humans alike moved in a crowded ballet of barter and survival, their voices melting into a constant tide of haggling, laughter, and occasional desperation. Among them stood Sergeant Elena Ward, her brown jacket patched with the crest of Earth's Relief Corps, a humanitarian branch that was often mistaken for soldiers until they began fixing rather than fighting. Her eyes, tired yet searching, scanned the rows of stalls for something as simple as a meal, something not freeze-dried, not replicated, not rationed. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. She found it in the form of a steaming pot at a corner stall, run by a local alien vendor whose translucent skin reflected the glow of a nearby hollow sign. The smell was oddly comforting, almost reminiscent of roasted corn back on Earth, but threaded with an alien sharpness that made her throat tighten. She'd been on this rim world for months, aiding reconstruction after a skirmish between mercenary guilds, and her credits were nearly gone. Still, she reached for her last digital coin, thinking a warm bowl would be worth it, when a small, trembling voice broke through the buzz of trade. "Take my meal. I need tokens for Mother's cure." Elena turned. The voice came from a child, small, gray-blue skin stretched thin over delicate bones, enormous dark eyes shimmering with reflected neon. Its ears tapered backward like soft fins, twitching with each word. The alien child held out a tin bowl, the contents still steaming, toward a passerby who didn't even slow down. The child stepped closer, clutching the bowl as if it were both treasure and burden. Around its neck hung a strip of worn fabric with crude embroidery, a sigil of its people, maybe, or a family mark. The child's breathing was ragged, and its hands trembled, but its gaze stayed steady. Elena's instincts flared. Humanitarian training emphasized observation before intervention. Never assume, never intrude, but there was something universal about hunger and the sound of pleading. She crouched, knees creaking, until she met those huge eyes head-on. "Hey there," she said softly, keeping her tone gentle, palms open. "Who's your mother? Maybe I can help." The child blinked, uncertain whether she was another traitor or something worse. It hesitated before whispering, "Mother is sick. She coughed blood and can't breathe the blue air. The medman says we need 10 tokens. I have one." It held up a small crystal coin that glittered weakly in the low light. Elena's stomach twisted. 10 tokens were barely enough to buy a night's stay in the upper decks, let alone proper medicine. But that wasn't what stung. It was the quiet way the child accepted its role in this cruel arithmetic, already offering the only warm thing it possessed. She asked, "What's your name?" The child's voice almost vanished into the noise. "Rin." It said the word as though expecting the sound itself might be taken away. Rin's people, she recalled from her mission brief, were native to Ethra 9, a colony scarred by radiation storms after mining corporations stripped its crust. The survivors, unable to breathe unfiltered oxygen for long, fled to orbital trade hubs like this one, surviving through small exchanges and salvage. Rin couldn't have been older than 7 in human years, though alien growth was never exact. Its eyes darted toward the vendor, who was watching with suspicion, perhaps fearing Elena would accuse him of exploiting a child. She didn't. Instead, she glanced at the pot and then back at Rin. "You were going to sell your food?" Rin nodded solemnly. "Humans buy pity. Maybe they buy this too." The words landed heavier than the recycled air pressing around her. Elena reached into her jacket and pulled out her identification tag, flicking it toward the vendor. The man's nictitating membranes blinked twice before he nodded, confirming she was authorized aid personnel. 2 bowls, she said, tapping her wrist pad to transfer the last of her credits. The vendor hesitated before serving both portions, steaming with the tang of unfamiliar roots. She handed one to Rin. "For your mother," she said. Eat this one yourself first. The child's mouth parted in confusion. But then mother gets none. Elena smiled faintly. You can't help her if you fall down first, can you? For a moment, the child simply stared, the logic foreign but warm. Then it lifted the spoon, trembling, and took a cautious bite. Its eyes widened as flavor hit its tongue, and a tiny sound, a half-sob, half-laugh, escaped. Elena took her own bowl and ate slowly, letting the silence between them grow gentle instead of awkward. Around them, traders continued their endless dance, unaware that anything unusual had happened. Yet in that small pocket of stillness, something ancient stirred, the simple act of sharing food. As they ate, Elena studied the small oxygen regulator clipped to Rin's collar. It flickered red every few seconds, meaning it was overdue for recalibration. She frowned. That regulator. How long since it was checked? Rin looked down. It hums sometimes. I hit it and it stops. That was no good. A faulty regulator meant suffocation in less than an hour if the system failed completely. She finished her food, stood, and extended her hand. Take me to your mother. I'll see what we can do. Rin hesitated, torn between mistrust and hope. Finally, it nodded, clutching the empty bowl like a talisman. The pair wove through the marketplace's maze of steel corridors, each step echoing softly. The lights grew dimmer, the air thicker with rust and ozone, until they reached a lower deck. No signs, no traders, just forgotten machinery humming in the dark. Rin stopped beside a makeshift curtain fashioned from old cargo netting. Inside, a figure lay on a worn cot, breathing shallowly. Her skin, a paler shade of blue, shimmered faintly with fever. Tubes ran from the regulator to her chest, taped with care, but leaking faint mist. Elena knelt beside her, scanning with her wrist pad. The readings were bad. Oxygen mix-off by 30%, pulse erratic, toxins high. She set down her bag, pulling tools she'd salvaged over months of service. A sterilizer, a patch kit, a mini oxygen compressor. You fix machines? Rin asked softly. Elena smiled. I fix people who depend on machines. It wasn't medical gear by hospital standards, but in the field, it was often enough. She adjusted the regulator's valve, rewired a frayed conduit, and sealed a leak with polymer gel. The device's light shifted from red to amber, a fragile reprieve. The mother's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, then widened at the sight of Elena. Her voice was barely a whisper. You, human. Elena nodded. Relief Corps. You're safe. The woman tried to sit up, but winced. No one helps, unless they take something first. Elena pressed a hand to her shoulder. I'm not taking anything. Just making sure you both breathe tomorrow. Rin crouched beside her, holding the now cool bowl against his chest. The mother's gaze softened, pride and pain mingling. He tried to sell his food again. Elena hesitated, unsure if the truth would wound or heal. He did, she said quietly, but he found someone to share it with instead. The mother exhaled, a sound between relief and sorrow. He learns too fast, in a world too cruel. When Elena finished sealing the regulator, the woman's breathing steadied. This will hold for a while, she said, but she'll need proper meds soon. I can try to petition the clinic. The mother shook her head. They asked for more than credits. They asked for names, signatures. We have none. Elena frowned. Bureaucracy again, the kind that turned compassion into currency. She thought of her dwindling supplies, her lack of authority beyond repair work, and the promise she'd made to herself to stay detached. Yet here, in this dim corridor with a child clutching hope and a mother fading by inches, detachment felt impossible. She looked at Rin and then back at the woman. Rest. I'll find a way. When she stepped back into the corridor, the hum of the station felt louder. Rin followed her, holding the empty bowl, eyes uncertain. You'll help Mother? He asked. Elena crouched again, so they were eye to eye. I'll do everything I can, but I need you to promise something. No more selling your food. Deal. Rin tilted his head, confusion flickering into a small, fragile smile. Deal, he said. They returned to the upper level, where traders shouted prices and lights pulsed like restless hearts. Somewhere in that chaos, Elena would find 10 tokens, or the medicine itself. Either way, she wasn't leaving without keeping her word. The universe was vast, indifferent, and cruel in its arithmetic. But humanity's strange defiance, the refusal to let despair define the equation, was why she was here. And maybe, she thought as Rin clutched her sleeve, that was reason enough. The next morning came without sunrise, only the dim glow of the station's day-cycle lamps flickering on one by one like reluctant stars. The artificial dawn revealed the bruised underbelly of Deck 12, where steam hissed from broken vents and condensation dripped like rain onto corroded pipes. Elena had spent the night in the relief dormitory, her cot wedged between crates of supplies, her mind spinning through every possible way to get Rin's mother the medicine she needed. Tokens. Always tokens. The currency of mercy, standardized by those who never went hungry. She rubbed her eyes and checked her wrist pad. 3 messages from command, all marked low priority, none offering what she needed most: authorization to requisition medical stock. Her boots echoed as she crossed the deck toward the central lift. Around her, the station stirred awake, dockhands shouting, drones hovering, traders preparing to squeeze profit from the desperate. She'd seen it too often: help rationed by the ounce, compassion throttled by policy. Still, the Relief Corps had rules, and she'd followed them all until now. But as Rin's frightened eyes haunted her memory, something inside her shifted. A small rebellion, almost human instinct. She decided she'd break protocol if she had to. If she was to live up to the stories humanity told about itself, the kind whispered in alien tongues about Earth-born stubbornness, then it had to start with one act of defiance that mattered. The clinic sat 3 levels above, guarded not by soldiers but by accountants. Transparent walls revealed rows of patients behind sealed partitions, each separated by oxygen barriers that shimmered like thin soap bubbles. Machines hummed with clean precision, sterile and distant. The desk clerk, an android with a polished chrome face, looked up as she approached. Relief personnel identified. Please state purpose. Elena straightened. Medical requisition for Ethrin civilian. Female, respiratory distress. Need antitoxin vials and oxygen buffer units. The android's lights pulsed briefly. Authorization level insufficient. Patient not registered. I can register her now, Elena pressed. I'll sponsor her under my ID. Denied, the android replied with perfect calm. Sponsorship requires command authorization. Estimated response time: 6 cycles. 6 cycles, nearly 6 days. The mother wouldn't last half that. Elena's jaw tightened. There must be another way. Alone, barter. The android's tone remained unyielding. Tokens required. 10 standard. No exceptions. She exhaled through her teeth. 10 tokens might as well have been 10 planets. Yet as she turned to leave, she noticed a maintenance hatch partially ajar behind the med supply room's corridor. A faint shimmer of coolant mist drifted from it. Unauthorized entry would flag security, but she'd worked enough backlands to know how to bypass a passive sensor. Her conscience argued that stealing from a clinic was a betrayal of the very cause she served. But then she saw Rin's small face again, trembling yet proud, and that argument dissolved. She waited until a cargo drone hovered past, its hum masking the soft click of her wrist tool. The hatch opened to reveal a crawl space lined with tubes, glowing faint blue. She crawled through, heart hammering, until she reached the back of the supply room. Shelves upon shelves of medicine gleamed in vacuum-sealed packs. Labels in multiple scripts listed their contents: bioserum, lung stabilizers, oxygen catalysts. She found the vial she needed, marked with an Ethrin sigil. Just one will buy the woman days, maybe more. She reached for it, but mechanical voice froze her mid-motion. Unauthorized access detected. The android clerk's tone echoed through the vents, now sharper. Security en route. Elena's mind raced. Running would mark her as a thief, and her mission, maybe her freedom. But staying meant failure. She grabbed the vial, sealed it inside her jacket, and crawled back just as red lights began to flash. Sirens pulsed low and steady, echoing like a heartbeat. She emerged into the main hall, walking briskly, but not running. Running was guilt's confession. 2 security drones floated down the corridor, scanners sweeping. She adjusted her ID display, set to show Field Technician, Maintenance. The drone scanned her once, twice, then hovered aside. She kept moving, calm as a practiced lie, until she reached the lift. When the doors closed, she finally breathed. The vial pressed cold against her ribs, a small miracle in stolen form. She felt no triumph, only the heavy pulse of adrenaline. In her mind, she rehearsed the next steps: stabilize the mother, reconfigure the regulator, disappear before anyone traced the missing stock. Yet even as guilt gnawed, she couldn't regret it. Humanity had built laws for order, but compassion always started where rules broke. Back on Deck 12, Rin waited near the market stall, holding an empty crate like a shield. When he saw her, he ran forward, ears twitching with disbelief. "You came back." Elena knelt, opening her jacket to reveal the vial. The child's eyes widened until tears trembled at the edges. "Is that? It'll help her breathe," she said softly. "But we need to be careful. It's fragile." Together, they slipped through the narrow passages toward the small room. The mother lay weaker now, her skin a dull gray. Elena worked fast, connecting the vial's injector tube into the regulator, adjusting airflow ratios, initiating the catalyst mix. The machine hissed, glowed faintly, then steadied. The mother gasped, then took a deeper, smoother breath. The sound filled the space like a prayer answered. Rin clung to Elena's sleeve. "She's better. For now," Elena said, watching the regulator stabilize. "But she'll need more soon." This was only a start. The mother stirred, eyes opening slowly. "You came back," she whispered, voice trembling. Elena smiled faintly. "Couldn't stay away. I'm stubborn like that." The woman's gaze fell to the vial, recognition dawning. "You risked your post. For us?" Elena didn't answer. The truth would only burden them. Instead, she checked the readout again, pretending focus. "You'll rest easy tonight." Outside, the corridor lights dimmed as the night cycle began. The hum of machinery softened, replaced by distant murmurs of traders winding down. Rin, exhausted from hope, curled beside his mother, clutching her hand. Elena sat against the wall, knees drawn up, watching the slow rhythm of their breathing. The air smelled faintly of ozone and soup remnants. For the first time in weeks, she felt something like peace, not the absence of danger, but the presence of purpose. Then her wrist pad vibrated. A coded message blinked across the screen. "Sergeant Ward, unauthorized entry logged. Report to command." Her stomach dropped. They knew. She muted the alert, fingers trembling. If they traced her, the medicine would be reclaimed, the family punished, and she'd be reassigned, or worse. She looked at Rin sleeping and made her decision before fear could bargain it away. She'd get them off the station. There was an old shuttle port below the maintenance decks, mostly forgotten, used by smugglers. If she could bribe a pilot, or pilot one herself, they could reach the surface colonies where relief oversight was thinner. It would mean leaving everything, her post, her record, even Earth's distant voice. But humanity's legacy wasn't about staying clean. It was about staying kind. She leaned back, letting exhaustion claim her for a moment. Outside, the stars hung motionless beyond reinforced glass, cold and bright. She remembered her father's words from long ago. When the universe forgets mercy, remind it who we are. By the time artificial dawn returned, she had a plan. She scavenged spare oxygen cells, wrapped the repaired regulator in cloth, and packed what few rations remained. The mother protested weakly when Elena told her they were leaving. "You'll lose everything," she whispered. Elena smiled, eyes steady. "Some things are worth losing." They moved through service corridors under cover of dim light, Rin leading with surprising surety, navigating through ducts and forgotten stairwells. Twice they avoided patrol drones, their lights sweeping inches from them. The hum of the station felt alive, aware, almost resentful of their escape. Finally, they reached a small hangar, dusty, half-lit, housing vessels long stripped for parts. One shuttle remained mostly intact, hull patched with mismatched alloys. The markings on its side read Ardent Dream. Elena tested the hatch. It opened with a groan. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. "We can make it to the lower colonies," she said, running diagnostics on the console. "Atmosphere's rough, but there's an old relief outpost there. I can argue sanctuary." Rin climbed into the co-pilot's seat, ears perked, awe overtaking fear. "You fly," Elena chuckled softly. "Used to. Guess we'll find out if I still can." The engines sputtered, coughed, then roared weakly to life. Alarms echoed from the docking bay. Security had noticed. She strapped Rin in, secured the mother beside him, and pulled the throttle. The ship shuddered, then lifted, breaking free from its moorings. Outside, sirens wailed, and drones swarmed like angry hornets. The docking shield shimmered red. Elena gritted her teeth and muttered, "Come on, old girl, just once more." The thrusters ignited, blasting through the containment field in a flash of light. The force threw her back in the seat as the shuttle lurched into open space, alarms screaming, heat shields glowing. Rin clutched her arm, eyes wide. Below them, the orbital station shrank to a glittering circle, cold and indifferent. They were free for now. The shuttle's hull trembled as it tore through the planet's thin upper atmosphere, a streak of white fire carving the night sky. Elena gripped the control yoke until her knuckles blanched, fighting both gravity and the ship's age. The navigation screen flickered with static, its old circuitry struggling under the strain. Through the viewport, the world below unfolded, a wasteland of pale deserts and fractured glass plains glowing faintly beneath twin moons. The remnants of Ethran 9, once rich with mineral rivers and vapor canyons, now poisoned by centuries of strip mining and radiation storms. Somewhere below, among those scars, were colonies that refused to die. Humanity would call them refugees. The Ethrans called them home. "Hold on," Elena muttered as the shuttle jolted, a burst of heat rattling the cockpit. Rin whimpered softly but stayed silent, clutching his mother's hand where she lay strapped to a crash harness. The oxygen regulator flickered yellow, the medicine working but straining. Elena adjusted airflow manually, then eyed the fuel gauge, barely a quarter tank left. Enough for one descent, not enough for mistakes. The planet's magnetic storms danced across the horizon, ribbons of blue lightning sweeping the sky like angry gods. She aimed for a valley where sensors showed faint life signatures. "That's where we'll land," she said aloud, though mostly to herself. The radio crackled with a faint voice. "Unidentified vessel. This is station control. You're in violation of flight protocols. Power down immediately." Elena ignored it, but another voice followed, deeper, colder. "Sergeant Ward, your ID has been flagged. You are harboring unauthorized aliens. Turn yourself in." Her stomach tightened. They tracked her already. She switched to manual frequency scrambling and cut the transmitter. "They're not aliens," she muttered under her breath. "They're people." When the shuttle finally broke through the storm layer, a pulse of pressure slammed against the hull. Warning lights flared red. Elena fought the yoke, guiding the ship down between jagged cliffs. The ground rushed up, a blur of sand and metal wreckage, until the landing strut struck hard. The jolt sent dust plumes curling into the thin air, the engines coughing out one last sigh before silence. For a long moment, none of them moved. Only the faint hum of the regulator broke the stillness. Rin was the first to speak. "We're alive." His voice trembled between wonder and disbelief. Elena leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Barely, but yes." Outside, the world glowed faintly beneath the auroras. Strange crystals jutted from the ground, refracting the light into shifting blues and greens. The air was thin, tinged with metal and ash. She opened the hatch cautiously, the wind bit like ice. The desert stretched endlessly, dotted by skeletal towers, remnants of mining rigs that once fed empires. Rin followed her out, his ears folding against the cold. The mother stirred weakly, her breathing shallow but steadier. Elena scanned the horizon. A faint signal pulsed from the east. A relief outpost, or what remained of one. There, she said. We walk before the storm shifts again. She loaded supplies into a small pack, wrapped the mother in thermal fabric, and motioned for Rin to help her lift. Together they trudged through the dust, their shadows stretching long under the twin moons. Every step echoed with the crunch of crystalline sand, the faint hiss of wind carrying distant whispers. Metal groaning, perhaps, or the ghosts of machines that once mined this world hollow. As hours passed, the temperature dropped further, breath turning to mist. Elena's lungs ached, her muscles burning from fatigue. She'd marched across war fronts, through ice colonies and plague zones, but something about this desolation unsettled her more. It wasn't just emptiness, it was memory. A planet remembering what it had lost. Rin's small hand gripped hers, grounding her in the present. You're cold, he said softly. She smiled faintly. Humans complain a lot about cold. It keeps us alive. When they finally reached the outpost, it was nothing more than a dome half buried in dust. The emblem of the relief corps was barely visible, half-eaten by corrosion. Elena forced the airlock open, its servos groaning in protest. Inside, dim lights flickered to life. Old medical pods lined the walls, long powered down. She set the mother on one of the cots and began searching for functional systems. Most were dead, but a few terminals still blinked with weak energy. One terminal booted, displaying a faded message. Outpost 6, abandoned following evacuation. Year 2431. Empty, she muttered, frustration tightening her chest. She pried open a storage locker. Mostly dust, a few canisters of emergency rations, and one small generator. It sputtered when she activated it, but gave enough power to warm the room. Rin explored quietly, curiosity overcoming fear. He found a cluster of old relief posters showing smiling humans and aliens standing side by side. You helped everyone, he said, tracing the image with one finger. Elena looked up from the terminal. We tried. Sometimes trying was all we could do. The mother stirred, her voice faint but stronger than before. You could have left us, she whispered. Elena turned. And become what the galaxy expects humans to be? No thanks. Outside, the wind howled louder. Static filled the air, and the outpost sensors flickered. Something large moved in the storm. A heat signature approaching from the west. She checked her scanner. Not drones. Not human. The readings were irregular, shifting. Then she saw it through the cracked viewport. A silhouette lumbering through the haze, metal limbs glinting under moonlight. Rin gasped. The collectors. She'd heard of them. Automated harvesters left behind when corporations fled, still wandering the wastelands searching for ore, reprogrammed by time and decay. Anything with a heat signature was considered salvage. Elena grabbed her rifle, a standard issue from the Corps, mostly for deterrence, and checked the power cell. Half charge. Get behind the cot, she ordered. Rin obeyed instantly, shielding his mother. The harvester drew closer, its steps heavy, claws grinding metal shards. Its single optic glowed red, scanning the dome. The generator's heat must have attracted it. Elena aimed through the cracked viewport and fired a short burst. The plasma bolt struck its shoulder, sizzling through rusted plating. It roared, not in pain but in mechanical fury, and swung its searchlight toward them. She ducked as the wall exploded in sparks, metal debris slicing through the air. Out the back, she shouted. She grabbed the mother's arm, slung her across her shoulder, and ran toward the maintenance corridor. Rin followed, clutching a small flashlight. The harvester crashed through the dome wall, shards of glass scattering like rain. Its steps shook the ground. Elena fired again, hitting its knee joint. It stumbled, buying precious seconds. They reached a side tunnel carved into the rock, the air thick with dust. Inside, the dark swallowed sound. They moved by the faint glow of Rin's light, hearts pounding. The tunnel sloped downward, deeper into the mountain. Behind them, the harvester's roar faded, replaced by the eerie hum of subterranean energy. Elena slowed only when the passage widened into a cavern, a natural hollow filled with faintly glowing roots. The walls shimmered with bioluminescent veins, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. "What is this?" she murmured. Rin's eyes widened. "Old life. The planet's blood." He touched one of the glowing roots gently. "Our ancestors said Ithra remembers who walks on her. She hides what she loves." The air grew warmer, almost gentle. Elena set the mother down near a wall, feeling her pulse steady. The regulator hummed softly, now absorbing trace oxygen from the bioluminescence. It wasn't pure science, but it worked. For the first time since they fled, the tension in her chest eased. But the peace didn't last. Her wrist pad pinged faintly. A satellite signal had locked on her ID. Relief Command had traced her descent. Above the surface, shuttles would already be mobilizing. Her crime, stealing medicine, aiding fugitives, wouldn't be forgiven. Yet as she looked at Rin and his mother resting amid the glowing roots, she knew she couldn't go back. Rin touched her sleeve. "They'll come." "Yes," she admitted, "but we'll be ready." He frowned. "Humans fight everything." She smiled tiredly. "Not everything, just what tries to take away what's right." Outside the cavern, lightning flared again, thunder echoing through the rock like the beating of a giant heart. Somewhere above, the universe prepared to pass judgment. But down here, in the heart of a dying planet, humanity's stubborn mercy had found home. The storm raged above them like an ancient god tearing at the sky. Lightning rippled across the cliffs, blue fire bleeding through cracks in the cavern roof. Elena listened to it between heartbeats, counting the seconds, gauging distance, training habits that never died. She crouched beside the bioluminescent roots, patching what remained of her rifle's power cell, while Rin slept against his mother's side. The glow painted them all in soft emerald hues, turning metal to moss, fear to momentary calm. The mother's breathing had steadied, shallow but rhythmic, her skin less gray now that the air around them was rich with oxygenated trace gases. The bioluminescence wasn't just light. It was life resurrecting itself, an old ecology adapting in secret. She touched one of the glowing veins, feeling a faint pulse beneath her fingertips. The rhythm was too deliberate to be mere reaction. It almost felt like communication. The Relief Corps had documented strange plant intelligence before, but this was different. It was as if the planet itself was watching them, sheltering them in its lungs. Her wrist pad flickered again, a faint signal breaking through interference. "Ward, respond. This is Captain Lyra. You've gone rogue. Return now, and no one gets hurt." Elena stared at the message, thumb hovering over the reply icon. She could picture Lyra's face, the blend of authority and disappointment that had guided her through missions before. But she also pictured Rin's small hands offering his only meal, and the choice became simple. She powered off the pad. By morning, the storm had calmed. Thin daylight filtered through the cracks, scattering into spectral hues that shimmered on the cavern walls. Elena used the lull to explore. Beyond the main chamber stretched narrow tunnels, some leading to collapsed mines, others to empty reservoirs where water once flowed. In one alcove, she found remnants of old human machinery, drills, exosuits, all corroded beyond use. But one device caught her eye, a terraformer beacon, cracked but not dead. Its interface blinked faintly under dust, running on residual power. The markings read, Atmos Stabilizer Unit 3B, Earth Industries. Humanity had built this place once, exploited it, abandoned it, and left behind the tools that could heal it again. Her breath caught. If she could restart the stabilizer, it might seed breathable zones across kilometers. Enough to sustain life for Rin's people without regulators. Enough to make Ithra livable again. It would take power, more than the beacon's dying core could offer, but maybe the roots could feed it. They pulsed with bioelectric energy. She could jury-rig a conduit using her repair kit. Her mind raced through schematics, instinct driving thought. Fixing things was what humans did best. When a universe broke, they stitched it back together with stubborn hands and wild hope. By the time Rin woke, She was already laying out cables. He blinked sleepily. "You're building something." She smiled. "Maybe something that will let your people breathe without begging." He tilted his head, uncertain. "You think the planet wants that?" "I think it's tired of dying," she said simply. Hours passed as she worked, connecting wires, splicing circuits, calibrating voltage until the beacon hummed softly. The roots reacted immediately, their glow intensifying, tendrils coiling gently toward the metal. The air filled with a low resonance like distant song. She stepped back as light rippled through the network of vines, carrying energy deeper into the earth. The beacon screen flashed once, twice, then steadied green. Atmospheric reclamation activated. For a moment, the cavern seemed to breathe. Warm air rushed upward, carrying the scent of damp soil and ozone. Outside, faint mist rose from the barren sand as dormant microbes reawakened. Elena stared, awestruck. Humanity had once poisoned this world. Now, through accident or grace, a human had helped it inhale again. Rin's laughter echoed softly, a fragile, beautiful sound. "You fixed the sky," he cried, ears flicking with delight. She laughed too, though the sound was half-sob. "We fixed it," she corrected. But joy faded as quickly as it came. Her pad reactivated without permission. Emergency override flashing red. The screen displayed live telemetry. 2 relief interceptors descending from orbit. Command hadn't given up. She could disable her signal again, but they'd find the beacon's surge. "They're coming," she murmured. Rin's smile faltered. "Humans?" "Yes," she said grimly. "The other kind." The mother stirred weakly. "You must go. They'll punish you." Elena shook her head. "No one's taking you back. Not while I can still stand." Outside, dust rose as the first interceptor broke through the cloud layer, its engines cutting ribbons of fire across the horizon. She dragged debris across the cavern entrance, sealing them in partial shadow. The beacon's hum grew louder, its energy radiating outward like a heartbeat syncing with her own. She rechecked her rifle, knowing it wouldn't matter against military drones. Still, she'd stand. That was the difference between surrender and meaning, the act of standing when logic said you couldn't. When the first drone entered the canyon, its spotlight slicing through haze, she fired, not to destroy but to blind. Plasma struck the cliff face, scattering shards that glowed like falling stars. The drone swiveled, returning fire. She ducked behind rock, heat searing past her. Rin crouched nearby, gripping a shard of metal like a blade, though it was far too heavy. "Stay down," she shouted. A second explosion rocked the ground, this one not from her weapon. The collector harvester she'd crippled before had followed their trail, drawn by the beacon's energy. It emerged from the storm like a resurrected titan, roaring metallic fury. The relief drones redirected instantly, misidentifying it as a threat. Plasma fire streaked between machine and machine, chaos blooming. Elena stared, disbelief turning to grim opportunity. "That's our cover," she said. She guided Rin and his mother through a side passage as the battle raged outside. The cavern walls trembled, dust raining down. In the distance, the beacon's glow intensified until it filled the tunnels like sunrise. Rin clung to her sleeve, wide-eyed. "You made them fight each other?" "Not on purpose," she said, breathless, "but I'll take the help." They reached a narrow ledge overlooking the valley. Below, she could see the beacon's energy rippling outward in concentric waves, terraforming the ground in real time. Plants, tiny and fragile, began sprouting from cracks. For the first time, green returned to etherous gray skin. Her throat tightened. "Look," she whispered. Rin's voice trembled. "It's alive again." The sound of engines drew her gaze upward, one interceptor still flying, searching. She grabbed the mother's regulator, now flickering faint blue, and adjusted it for atmospheric mix. The reading stabilized. The air was becoming breathable. "Take a breath," she said to the mother. The woman hesitated, then inhaled deeply. No mask, no pain. Tears glistened on her cheeks. "It's clean," she whispered. That single breath felt like victory. Not a battle won with weapons, but with will. Yet Elena knew Command wouldn't see it that way. To them, she was a rogue operative who endangered relief property. She'd need to vanish before they descended fully. She scanned the horizon, north, a range of canyons leading toward geothermal vents. If she could reach them, the magnetic interference would hide their heat signatures. She packed what little they had, guiding them into the path where new plants brushed their legs like curious children. Halfway through the valley, a transmission burst across her comm, unfiltered, personal. "Elena, stop running. You can't change what's already broken." It was Captain Lyra, the voice that had once anchored her. She froze mid-step, staring at the horizon. Slowly, she replied, "Maybe not, but I can remind it how to heal." Then she shut off the channel for good. As dusk settled, auroras shimmered across the reborn sky. The air felt thicker, warmer. Each breath carried the scent of soil reclaiming itself. Rin ran ahead, laughter echoing between rocks, his steps leaving prints that wouldn't vanish so quickly this time. The mother followed slower, but with strength that hadn't been there before. Elena lagged behind, scanning once more for drones. None came, only wind and life. They reached a high ridge just as night fell. From there, the valley spread below, a patchwork of green light and blue flame, where machines and storms had once ruled. Now, the planet's pulse was its own again. Elena sat on a rock, exhaustion weighing her bones. Rin climbed beside her, silent for a long while before asking, "Will the humans come back?" "Maybe," she said, "but maybe they'll see what one of us did and think twice next time." He looked up at her with solemn awe. "You fixed the sky and the ground." She smiled faintly. "No, Rin, you fixed me." The night wind carried the sound of leaves rustling, impossible but real. The planet, it seemed, was whispering thanks in its own language. By morning, the light over Ether 9 was different. It wasn't the harsh, white glare of reflected storms, nor the cold gleam of orbital lamps. It was warm, almost golden, scattered through thin clouds that shimmered with new moisture. The air hummed with change, as if the planet itself had begun to breathe again. Elena woke to that hum, her head resting against the ridge's rough stone, her jacket wrapped around Rin, who slept curled beside his mother. For a moment she simply watched them, their faces calm in the new dawn, the pulse of the bioluminescent roots still faintly visible beneath the soil. She exhaled, letting her body unclench for the first time in what felt like years. Humanity had destroyed worlds before. Today, it had mended one. She rose quietly, brushing dust from her sleeves. The horizon stretched wide and soft, dotted by faint green patches where the terraformer's pulse had reached overnight. She climbed to a higher outcrop, scanning the sky. No interceptors, no drones, just a single satellite glimmering faintly, a ghost of orbit. Her wrist pad remained silent. Perhaps Command had written her off already. A deserter, a lost cause. It didn't matter. History could brand her anything. The truth was buried here in soil that lived again. She turned back toward the small camp. Rin was awake now, chasing a strange insect through the grass. Grass, real grass. Each blade shimmered with dew. He laughed, the sound bright and free. His mother sat watching him, eyes glistening. When Elena approached, she tried to rise, but Elena knelt instead. "Don't," she said softly. "Save your strength." The woman smiled faintly. "Strength is returning. To me, to her, to the world." She looked toward the horizon. "When I was young, our elders said the planet would one day forgive us. I never believed them." Elena followed her gaze. Maybe it wasn't forgiveness. Maybe it was waiting for someone to remind it what mercy feels like. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind move across the valley like breath through a flute. When Rin returned, carrying a handful of glowing moss, he held it out proudly. "It grows where light touches," he said, grinning. Elena took it gently, the warmth surprising her. It pulsed faintly against her palm, alive and aware. She realized then that the bioluminescent network below had spread faster than she imagined, its roots feeding into the terraformer's grid, accelerating renewal. The planet wasn't healing slowly. It was rebirthing itself. Yet the miracle carried consequence. As she recalibrated her scanner, readings spiked. Unstable geothermal activity, radiation pockets collapsing inward, atmospheric pressure fluctuating. The planet's systems were adjusting violently to the sudden restoration. If it balanced, ether would live. If it didn't, the eruption would level everything for kilometers. She swallowed hard. "We need to move inland," she said. "Find higher ground before this stabilizes." Rin looked alarmed. "It's breaking." "No," she said quickly, forcing a calm she didn't feel. "It's just changing fast, like a body learning to breathe again." They packed what little they had and began walking toward the canyon's ridge. The terrain was already shifting beneath their feet. Cracks sealing, soil thickening, colors deepening. It was like walking through evolution in motion. The air thickened, carrying warmth and moisture that made her lungs ache in gratitude. Above them, auroras faded into true sunlight. Halfway up the ridge, she spotted something that made her stop. Embedded in the slope was a wreck, a smaller relief pod, its hull half buried, still bearing Earth's insignia. She approached carefully. The pod's door hung open, the interior filled with dust and silence. Inside lay skeletons, 2 humans in relief uniforms, long dead. A faded datapad rested between them. She picked it up, brushed off grime, and watched as it flickered weakly to life. The last entry glowed faintly. Atmos unit activation unsuccessful. Local resistance destroyed. Evacuation ordered. Leaving beacon to die. Elena stared at the words, anger rising slow and cold. They had abandoned this world after breaking it, writing failure into history without ever giving it a chance. She looked back toward the valley below, alive now, green veins spreading like forgiveness itself. The irony twisted sharp inside her chest. "You didn't fail," she whispered to the long dead. "You just stopped too soon." When she emerged, Rin was staring at the sky. A single aircraft moved there, distant and small. A relief reconnaissance drone, circling but not descending. Its pattern suggested observation, not pursuit. Maybe command had realized what she'd done. Maybe they were watching, waiting to see what would come of it. She raised her arm, activated her wrist pad, and transmitted a single data burst. No words, no plea. Just coordinates, environmental readings, and a tagline from her core oath. To heal, not to hold. Then she turned the device off for the last time. By dusk, they reached the upper plateau. From there, the view stretched for miles. The valley glowed faintly, rivers of blue-green weaving through sand like veins under skin. Clouds formed, real clouds, and rain began to fall in soft, hesitant drops. Rin lifted his face to the sky, laughing again. His mother joined him, tears mixing with the rain. Elena stood apart, head bowed, feeling water run down her face and hands, washing away the dust of old wars and old guilt. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe this was what redemption felt like. Not grand or celebrated, but quiet and alive. Night came slowly, stars emerging one by one until the sky became an ocean of light. They built a small fire from scavenged debris, its flame reflecting in Rin's wide eyes. He leaned against Elena's shoulder. "When I grow, I'll tell others what you did," he said sleepily. "I'll tell them humans can make the world breathe again." Elena smiled faintly, brushing his hair back. "If you tell them, make sure they know you helped. I couldn't have done it alone." He blinked up at her. "You really believe that?" "I do. You offered kindness when you had nothing. That's how worlds change, Rin. Not with strength, but with compassion that refuses to die." He nodded, half asleep already. The fire crackled softly. His mother sang something under her breath, a lilting, wordless tune that seemed to echo in the valley below. Elena watched the glow of the reborn plains, each patch of green a testament to survival. Somewhere far above, satellites would be transmitting the new readings back to Earth. Some official in a distant office would read them, frown, and wonder how a dead world had revived itself. They'd never know the truth, that it began with a child's plea and a stolen bowl of food. As dawn approached again, the horizon blazed with color, violet, gold, and soft blue, the hues of a living sky. Elena stood, stretching sore muscles, and felt the faint tremor of the planet stabilizing beneath her boots. Rin stirred awake, blinking at the sunrise. "What happens now?" he asked. She looked out at the endless landscape, the air shimmering with promise. "Now," she said quietly, "we build something worth the cost." They walked down from the ridge as light spilled across the plains. The wind carried seeds, scattering them across the soil like blessings. Every step left footprints that the soft earth eagerly reclaimed, folding them into its new skin. The mother hummed again, her voice blending with the whisper of the rain. Behind them, the beacon's distant pulse faded into daylight. And as the sun rose higher, the first true dawn Ethra 9 had seen in a century broke over the world, born not from technology nor conquest, but from an act of simple, impossible kindness.